Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we have a really special guide for you. We'll be covering 20 settings and hotkeys that can instantly help you climb the ladder. I promise we'll be covering a ton of settings that you've never heard of before, which is insane, because among challenger players, they're considered mandatory for climbing. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one, as we've painstakingly compiled every single keybind, setting, and hotkey professional players use to get an advantage on their opponent. Before we jump into it, we just wanted to say that you guys have been awesome and we wanted a way to give back and show our appreciation of your support. So we have something special for this guide. If you've ever had a question you wanted a challenger player to answer, now's your chance. Leave a comment below and earn a chance at having your question featured in our next YouTube video, where you'll get a definitive answer by our challenger experts. While you're down there, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to let us know you want to see more content like this. Alright, let's start with one that I can guarantee you weren't aware of. You can actually bind items so they will always be in a specific location in your inventory. That means no more smashing your keyboard, trying to get your Zhonya's to work, only to realize it's in the wrong inventory slot. So this is how you do it. In your League client, go to Collection, then Items. At the bottom, choose a champion you want to create an item set for. Make sure you have Summoner's Rift as the map selected, and hit the Create button. From here, you can set up what items will be recommended to you in the shop when you're in-game. This feature alone is fantastic at speeding up your ability to get back onto the map by opening the shop and buying the items you need, and something we highly recommend you use. Now, when you're creating item sets, all you have to do is hover your mouse over one of the items and you'll see 6 small boxes appear over it. Click on it, and the game will ask you for your preferred slot for that item. Now when you're in game and you purchase that item, it will automatically be assigned to the item slot that you've chosen. All it takes is a minute or two to set up, and you'll never die in lane because your health pot was on the wrong hotkey, or throw a teamfight because your Zhonya's was where it shouldn't have been. Before we continue, if you want to smash solo queue and finally get that rank you've always wanted, now is the best time to visit our site, skillcapped.com. There, we have a system specifically designed to help you improve fast. Never again fall behind the meta. Every week, we'll equip you with 2 premium up-to-date guides for each role with cutting-edge strategies. But that's not all. We also have a plethora of custom-tailored courses taking you through step-by-step everything you need to know to master your role. These are designed by leading solo queue experts who will be there every step of the way to answer any and all questions you have. So what are you waiting for? Stop feeding and start carrying. Click the link in the description below and visit skillcapped.com to get the rank you've always wanted. Alright, so we have 19 more settings to go through and a lot of ground to cover. To make things easier, we split them up into 3 distinct sections. The first is the mechanics section. This will focus on settings and hotkeys that will turn you into a mechanical god as you kite your way into challenger. The second is video settings. This will teach you all the ways you can get an edge on the opponent just by tinkering with a few in-game options. And lastly, we'll be covering some valuable settings that are often hidden inside the menu, causing them to go underutilized. Alright, let's jump into the mechanics section, where the first thing we'll be covering is quick casting. Quick casting is when upon pressing the hotkey for an ability, it instantly casts it. This is opposite to normal casting, where you press the ability, an indicator appears, and then you have to left click. The advantage of quick casting is the response time. By using quick casting, you'll immediately improve your reaction time, being able to dodge better, be more accurate, and land ability combos faster. One of the biggest reasons players don't feel comfortable quick casting is because they lose the ability to see indicators that help them line up their skill shots and see the range of the spell. One solution to this is to enable the setting, replace quick cast with indicator. This is kind of an in-between of true quick casting and normal casting. Now when you press the ability, you'll see an indicator and the spell won't be cast until you release the key. The problem with using this is that you lose some of that super valuable reaction time, since the spell won't be cast until you release your key. Compare this to true quick casting, where the spell is casted immediately once the key is pressed. For this reason, we don't recommend using this setting. Instead, there's a different setup the majority of pros use to get around this problem. First, you want to quick cast all your spells so you have the fastest reaction time possible. Then, head into the in-game settings to the Hotkeys tab. Here you'll see the ability to bind hotkeys to the normal cast function. Go through and set everything up so it's bound to Shift plus that spell's hotkey. So Shift Q, Shift W, Shift E, and Shift R. So what does this do for you? Well, let's say you get into the game and are playing Ahri. By default, you have everything quick casted, so you have super fast reaction times and can combo spells like a pro. That being said, sometimes you're in situations where you want to line up your charm and make sure it hits the opponent. Well, if you press Shift plus E, then it will bring up the indicator for you to do that, letting you left click to cast it as if you're normally casting. There are a ton of different benefits to this. For example, you may want to hit Shift plus Q to bring up the indicator so you can be sure to hit the entire minion wave with it. This way, by default, you have super fast reaction times, but in those unique situations where you need to line up your abilities, you can do so by using the Shift key. This is how the majority of pros use quick cast. Alright, now that you're using your spells like a true challenger, let's fix that ever embarrassing issue of accidentally gold carding a minion as Twisted Fate, stunning a minion as Renekton, or flashing to use your 4th auto as Jhin, only to, you guessed it, hit a minion. There's a setting called Target Champions Only that makes it so that your auto attacks will only target champions. For example, when I'm holding this hotkey down, you can see it's impossible for me to click on minions, click on a tower, or click on a jungle camp. I can only auto attack a champion. This is insanely helpful. Like we mentioned, it makes it so that the key abilities that are tied to auto attacks, such as Twisted Fate's gold card, is now impossible to accidentally misclick. However, it's more than that. Something as simple as trading in lane becomes easier to accomplish. No more auto-attacking a minion by accident. You can be certain you're going to hit the enemy champion. The same thing can be said when you're kiting through a minion wave. No more accidentally clicking on a minion, stopping your champion in place, when really you want to be running to escape. Something even cooler than all of that though is how it interacts with jungle camps, allowing you to get into positions you'd otherwise be unable to access without aggroing the camp. This can help set up ganks over walls, or simply facilitate a sneaky escape. To use this hotkey, go into your in-game settings, then Hotkeys, then open Abilities and Summoner Spells. Scroll down to the bottom and you'll see Target Champions Only. By default, it's bound to the tilde key, which most players find to be quite difficult to hit, so we'd recommend rebinding it to something more comfortable. I personally have rebound it to the X key. Next, we have the most flashy of all the mechanics, Attack Moving. This is the mechanic that will let you kite around like double lift and get you friend requests after the game asking you if you want to duo. At its core, all attack moving allows you to do is auto-attack a target despite clicking on the ground beside them. The main benefit of using attack move is that you don't need to be 100% accurate with your clicks when you're kiting. If you have to always right-click on the enemy champion when you're kiting, it's far too easy to miss, click on the ground, and accidentally walk forward. Attack move prevents this mistake from happening, since when you attack move the ground, it will target the enemy anyways. The best way to attack move is to go into the in-game settings, Hotkeys, then open player movement, and use the player attack move hotkey. By default, this will be set to the A key. The reason for this is if you go into the interface tab, you can enable a setting called Show Attack Range. Now, when you hit the A key to send an attack move command, it will bring up a range indicator. This will show you your character's auto attack range. This is insanely valuable if you're trying to improve at League of Legends, as it ties into an advanced concept called spacing. What spacing refers to is keeping the maximum distance from your opponent. For example, let's say I'm playing Caitlyn against Vayne. Caitlyn has 650 auto attack range to Vayne's 550, a 100 range advantage. To use this advantage, you would have to space properly, auto attacking Vayne at your maximum range to prevent her from being able to auto attack back. If you don't know your maximum range and instead move too far forward, you'll put yourself in range of Vayne and trade auto attacks. This is why using the A key along with enabling the Show Attack Range setting is so valuable, as you can make sure you're constantly spacing like a pro. There's another setting you should enable as well. If you go into the Game tab, you'll see an option called Attack Move on Cursor. When this is enabled, and you send an attack move command on the ground, it will make your auto attacks target the closest enemy from where you clicked on the ground. This is extremely valuable. This is because if you have this disabled, then instead it will target the closest enemy from your champion, not your cursor. The reason why this is a problem is that if you're kiting an enemy while in a minion wave, for example, you'll end up just auto attacking the minions in front of you. When you have attack move on cursor enabled, it fixes this, and when you send an attack move command on the ground next to the opponent, it will correctly focus the enemy champion since they're the closest to your cursor. A lot of players know about attack moving, but what they don't know are these optimizations that professional players and challenger players alike use to make attack moving that much more effective and easier to use. Alright, that was a lot to process, so let's move on to a simpler mechanic, the stop command. The stop command will make your character stop on your current position and prevent it from auto-attacking or moving. This is far more valuable than you might initially think. First, it makes last hitting so much easier. You see, when you auto-attack, your character sends out a missile. This missile doesn't do damage until it arrives at the enemy you selected. The act of last hitting is simply trying to time this missile to hit a low health minion at the right moment. What a lot of players don't realize is that this can be more difficult to do the further away you are from a minion, since it takes your auto-attack's missile longer to hit the minion. One trick you can do is move really close to a minion, then hit the stop command. Then, once the minion gets low, right-click to auto-attack it. Since you're standing so close to the minion, your auto-attack's missile has almost no travel time, making it far easier for you to time the last hit. This is an especially valuable technique when you've built up a big minion wave, as the speed in which your minions kill the enemy minions makes it super hard to time last hits. By using the stop command, you can get in close and make last hitting in these scenarios so much easier. Plus, you can do this cool trick where you spam the stop command and right-click to repeatedly make the start animation of your auto-attack go off. There's absolutely no benefit to it, but it makes an annoying sound and your opponent will wonder what the hell you're doing, which is fun. Now, the stop command by default will be bound to your S key, which is what we'd recommend you keep it as since it's in a very natural position. For our next mechanic, we have the F keys. The F keys make checking your teammates' lanes and getting a read on the map super slick and fast. Normally, you have to manually move your mouse and left click on the map on each one of your teammates to see what's happening. The problem with this method is that it can just be so slow. Instead, when you hit the F keys, it will instantly jump to your teammate, allowing you to cycle through them so much faster. If you go into your settings, under Hotkeys, and then Camera Control, you'll see the F keys bound to select Self, select Ally 1, all the way to Ally 4. We recommend rebinding this so that F1 is bound to Ally 1, F2 to Ally 2, and so on. This is because by default, F1 is bound to yourself and you already have a hotkey to jump the camera back to yourself, which is spacebar. Now, the F keys are valuable for all roles, but is especially valuable for junglers, since when you're doing camps, you can quickly hit F1, F2, F3 to cycle through each one of your lanes and see the health, mana, and minion wave position. This is incredibly useful, since you can help identify gank opportunities for yourself, as well as better identify where the enemy jungler will gank. And lastly, in the mechanics section, we have movement prediction. This is a setting you can enable if you go into the game tab and scroll down to the bottom. This specific setting used to be far less known, but has recently gained a lot of attention. One of the reasons for this is that well-known professional players have the setting enabled, such as SKT, T1 Faker, and G2 Caps. So what is it, and is it something you should also enable? Well, what this setting does is make it seem like you have zero ping. Everything will suddenly seem far more responsive, your movement commands, your ability casts, etc. However, it will only seem that way to you. You see, the enemy opponent won't actually notice any difference in your movements or ability casts. So what this actually does is cause a desync from what you're seeing and what's actually happening on the server. For this reason, there isn't any tangible competitive advantage to enabling this. Instead, it completely comes down to player preference and whether you like the feeling of zero ping, despite it not being an accurate representation of what your character is actually doing on the server. Some of you may be wondering then, well then why do some of the pros enable this? Well, like we said, it's mainly because they just like the feeling of it. But one other thing to keep in mind is that when these pros play professional matches, they're playing them on LAN, where they have zero ping. So for them, there's a tangible benefit to enabling this setting when they play in solo queue, since the champions they're controlling will feel the same as when they're on stage with zero ping. That being said, for us non-pros, it doesn't offer us that advantage. On one hand, it can make the game feel like it responds faster, but on the other hand, it's giving you inaccurate feedback on what's happening in-game. In the end, it's completely player preference, and there's no competitive advantage for us regular players. Alright, now let's get into video settings. To start, there are 3 smaller settings you should adjust. First, you need to disable eye candy. This will get rid of superfluous visual information that's not needed. It will also help your computer run the game faster, while also removing extra visuals that can distract you when trying to focus on dodging skill shots. Next, we have the minimap scale. You want to increase that to 100. You would be surprised at how often professional and challenger players are looking at the minimap instead of the game in front of them. By maximizing its size, you'll not only be reminded to check it more often, but when you do, you'll be able to take in more detailed information to quickly get a read on the map. And lastly, turn HUD scale all the way down to 0. This will increase your vision of the area around your character, giving you better spatial awareness. At the same time, the HUD will still be there for you to see anything on it that you need to. Now this next one is player preference, colorblind mode. Obviously, if you're colorblind, you would want to enable this. However, many players find it beneficial to have this enabled anyways. This is because it can make health bars, champions, and abilities stand out a lot more against the map. You can see how with colorblind mode enabled, Brand's W stands out a lot more compared to when it's disabled. It can have a tangible benefit, since if you can recognize what's on the screen faster, then you can also react to it faster. At the end of the day though, it's still personal preference. Try out a few games with it enabled and see if you find it helpful. And if you are one of those people that found enabling colorblind mode helpful, then you can take this a step further. If you have NVIDIA graphics cards, you can right-click on your desktop, then select NVIDIA Control Panel. From here, you'll see an option called Digital Vibrance. If you turn this up, it will make all the colors more vibrant and stand out a lot more. This can be especially helpful to see smaller skill shots that can blend in with the ground. So like we said, if you found the colorblind mode helpful, then try increasing the digital vibrance, as you will definitely notice a huge difference. Alright, so we covered a lot of video settings, but one of the most common questions players have is what should they set the quality level to? As a general rule, the higher your FPS, the better. So typically you want to have your quality settings as low as possible to maximize your FPS. This is because the more frames that are being displayed per second means the more up to date you are with what's happening in the game. Essentially, it can mean you see the enemy casting an ability slightly sooner than if you had lower FPS. However, this is only partly true. In reality, it has to do with both your FPS and your monitor's refresh rate. Your monitor's refresh rate is the number of times your monitor updates new images each second. Most monitors are set to 60 Hz, which means it refreshes 60 times per second. A simple way of understanding the relationship between FPS and monitor refresh rate is the following. Let's say you had 300 FPS in game. If you have a 60 Hz monitor, you're only able to see 60 of those frames since your monitor can only update 60 times a second. The same problem exists in the opposite scenario. If you had 60 FPS in game, but a 144Hz monitor, even though your monitor updates 144 times a second, you're only getting 60 frames a second in game. Essentially, both your FPS and your monitor's refresh rate can limit you. You want both as high as possible, so you're being updated with information in-game as fast as possible and thereby increasing your reaction times. So lower your settings to maximize your FPS, but also consider investing in a monitor with a higher refresh rate to take advantage of your higher frames per second. And as silly as this sounds, a lot of players actually have monitors with a higher refresh rate, but haven't enabled them as the higher refresh rate isn't enabled by default. To check your monitor's refresh rate and make sure you're at the highest setting possible, right-click on your desktop and select Display Settings. Then scroll down and select Advanced Display Settings, and then select Display Adapter Properties for Display 1. This will bring up a new window, click the Monitors tab, and here you'll see your monitor's refresh rate. Click the drop-down and select the highest refresh rate available for your monitor. Okay, so now you've optimized your video settings. One thing a lot of players don't do though is optimize their sound settings. The thing is, many studies have been done to prove that your auditory reaction time is actually faster than your visual reaction time. And in League of Legends, we actually use a lot of auditory cues for things such as when an enemy is casting an ability. For this reason, we'd recommend that you get rid of all unnecessary sounds that only serve to create distractions. This means muting the music volume, the voice volume, and the ambience volume. This way, you can clearly distinguish when an enemy is casting a spell and increase your speed to react to it. Next, we have a couple of easy settings to enable that will give you an immediate advantage. First is Champion Highlight on Camera Center. This will make it so that when you hit your spacebar to center the camera on your champion, that it highlights your champion. This is super useful, as it can be easy to lose track of your champion in teamfights, and with this enabled, you simply have to hit your spacebar and be immediately refocused on yourself. This can be found in the Interface tab under Notifications. Second is Show Spell Cost. This is found in the same place, just slightly below. This will make it so that the cost of your spells are displayed on top of them in your casting bar. This is great, as you can use this to do quick math and evaluate whether you have enough mana to land a kill. This helps avoid you awkwardly flashing in for a kill only to realize you ran out of mana in the middle of your combo. Third is the Area's Warded Ping. By default, this isn't bound to anything, so you'll need to choose what's most comfortable for you. This will allow you to ping areas of the map the enemy has warded, letting your teammates know where to clear vision or areas to avoid. In addition to this, you want to enable Show Timestamps. This will put a timestamp at the beginning of everything in the in-game chat. This is super useful. For example, if you see an enemy use their flash, you can hit tab and ping their flash. Then later on, once you've recalled or in a position where you have extra time on your hands, you can check the chat and see what time the flash was pinged. Since flash is a 5-minute cooldown, you can then type in chat when that enemy's flash will be back off cooldown. And speaking of the chat, here are two commands all players should have memorized. The first is /mute_all. This will mute all messages from your teammates and the enemy. And the second is /full_mute_all, which will mute messages, pings, and emotes from your teammates as well as the enemy. These can be very useful if you're someone who gets tilted by teammates blaming them or has a tendency to argue with them. In fact, you can even take this a step further. You should disable all chat, as there's no competitive advantage to seeing the enemy's chat and can only serve to tilt you or throw you off your game from the enemy trash talk. Additionally, Riot has recently added the option to disable team chat as well. If you find that the mute commands we mentioned don't prevent you from being tilted by your teammates or arguing with them, then consider enabling this so you don't even have to think about it. Alright, that's going to do it for this guide. Which setting or hotkey do you think is the most useful out of the ones we've listed? Let us know in the comments section below, as well as any questions you might have. We put a lot of extra effort into this guide, so if you want to show us some love, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. In the meantime, check out some of our other awesome guides. As always, good luck and have fun on Summoner's Rift.